And we're live. Oh, I'm still getting used to my backdrop now being a crib behind me. My office is being taken over, repurposed as a nursery. I mean, it always was part office, part guest room, part garage, part whatever else you shove in your spare room, but now it's gonna be a baby room. And that's okay because I won't need an office for a little while. I Good. Looks like we have some people tuning in. Okay, awesome. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from to SIC Maui Talk Stories. Actually, this is a special Women of Water Sports edition. So, hello, ladies. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure how in the moment popular this topic is going to be. Of course, how many women do we know right now that are currently paddling and pregnant? However, I do think that this is such a valuable topic to be discussed as paddling becomes a more popular sport and younger women are getting into it. I know a lot of women have come into the sport of paddling at an age where they've already had kids, right? But you can save this. You can save it for your daughters, for your friends, for your paddle buddies, and for yourself. There's going to be valuable information, and I'm going to tell my story, which is something that is going to be fun to listen to anyway. So welcome, good morning, thanks for being here. We're going to talk this morning about paddling and pregnancy, and please do chime in if you're listening live, or even if you're catching the replay. I will definitely go back and read comments in the next few days afterwards, as I always do, and answer those questions for you. So at any time, if you have questions, please put them in the comment box. Anytime you have comments, put them in the comment box. I love to know that you are here with me, and to make this as engaging as possible. So yeah, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to talk about some FAQs, answering questions that I've gotten in the last several months. And then I want to tell some stories from some other paddle women that I've spoken to that have paddled through their pregnancy. And then I want to just give as many tips as I can for how to make this as the best and most safe experience for you. So that's the plan. Let me just adjust my screen so that I can see my notes. Okay, cool. So, yeah. If you're watching, you probably know, but for those of you that don't know, obviously I'm currently almost 9 months pregnant. You can see my belly. And I have been paddling all the way through. Actually, I was just paddling this morning, and I was just surfing this weekend. So paddling and surfing all the way through. Feeling very safe and comfortable doing so. But my experience with paddling and really over the last couple of years with pregnancy has been a real journey of transformation for me, not just because I'm becoming a mother, but because of everything that has been going on. So I kind of wanted to give a little bit of a backdrop of where I'm coming from, because I think the assumption is that I've just been training and doing everything that I would normally do, and that's just really not the case. So it's been almost 2 years now since COVID first started, this whole pandemic, and that really was the start of this whole journey for me, because what happened was, all of a sudden, all the events that I had planned for the whole year were canceled, and I had the opportunity to take a break from training. I spent the last 7 years of my life training nearly every single day, really hard, really dedicated to this sport, and I was really, really happy to have actually that break initially when COVID first hit. So I started to take a little bit of a break from training back last spring. And what that did, once I slowed down enough to realize what was really going on in the world and how long we were really going to be going through this, I thought, well, this is the perfect time to finally start the family that I've always wanted to start. Um, so my husband and I, decided to consciously conceive, and we did at the end of the summer. And then for those of you that know me, you might know, and those of you that don't, we had a miscarriage at 10 weeks, and it was really painful and really traumatic, and also something that's really common in first trimesters and something women don't talk about a lot. And you're all women, so you probably know, you may have had one yourself, or you may know women that have had them. It's really impossible not to, because it's that common. So I was able, my husband and I, we were really hurt, but we were able to recover from that pretty quickly. Going into our second pregnancy, my first pregnancy, I was basically like, I can do anything, whatever I did when I was not pregnant, I'm going to keep doing while I'm pregnant. And, I felt really invincible because I am a very confident person. So I was very confident in that first pregnancy, and then that level of trust in myself just was like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe I do need to rethink how I'm doing things, And of course they say you didn't cause it, but those thoughts, you still can't get that completely out of your head, right? So we got pregnant again, and I went into the second pregnancy with a lot more caution. And again, we had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. And I was more than devastated and heartbroken. I actually was like really depressed, because then all of that confidence, all of that trust in my body, it was just gone. It was just gone. I've changed a lot in the last 2 years. That's all started with the slowing down from the pandemic of COVID, and then going through these traumatic experiences. It's all good now because of where I am right now, and I'll get to that. But what I really did, because I'm the type of person that I'm just all in, like whatever it is, I'm 100%. So I really committed to not just my health, but like learning about women's health and hormones in general. And something that I do, as well as paddle, is of course coach women, mostly women paddlers, in not just paddling, but whole body holistic health, mindset, self-love. And now I'm very much in tune with women's cyclical health and hormonal health, because I think that's super, super important. And that's something that I was able to learn through this whole process of slowing down, diving in. And it's really how things go in life, I believe. I believe no matter what, is you have goals, and along the way you meet challenges, and you're going to face failure, which really is just a learning and a growth opportunity, because that's exactly what you need to learn and to grow, to become the person who is able to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. So I believe that about paddling. I believe that about my paddle career, and I believe that about my pregnancy journey as well. So it's helped transform me as a woman. It's helped transform me as a women's coach. And of course, I wouldn't say, let me go back and do that all over again. I had a really, really hard year last year. However, it makes me even more grateful. And this is the thing about when we overcome our challenges and we learn from them, we become even more grateful for becoming the person that we are now and being where we are right now at the end of a full-term healthy pregnancy, So So for me, paddling through pregnancy this time around, this third pregnancy, has been a lot of actually rebuilding my confidence and my trust in my body, and paddling and surfing especially has actually helped me with that trust, with that intuition, with that knowing, hearing, listening to my body, which I think is one of the most beautiful parts of pregnancy, is our ability. And as women, we have intuition at all times. Like, it's one of our superpowers of women is our intuition, our ability to have wisdom, knowledge, answers from within, from our body. We just aren't taught how to listen and to trust that voice. And pregnancy is a beautiful opportunity to really dive in deeply to that. So yeah, because interestingly enough, I actually surfed more, prone surfing and stand-up surfing during this pregnancy than I did flat water, which is kind of the opposite of what you'd think felt safe, right? But for me, it wasn't that flat water didn't feel safe. It was that I really needed it to feel fun, and I actually really wanted my partner to be with me because he was such a big part of this. And so something that we just really dove into loving doing together was surfing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and the safety of that. So that's my abbreviated story, and I'm an open book. So even if you're too shy to write in the comments, like, I love hearing from you. I'm going to dive into FAQs and tips and some more stories from other women, but I love hearing from you. I love, if you want to reach out and talk at any more depth about any of that. Miscarriages, hormones, surfing, whatever it is, I'm here for it. So, and of course coaching, because that's what I'm like super passionate about right now. And so, obviously the first question, it really isn't even a question, but like, is it safe? And it's like, it is safe when you take necessary care. And I would say it's arguably one of the safest sports to participate in because of the, almost no impact. And yes, there's some balance, but like, I'm going to go through some tips after FAQs to talk about what are those necessary cares that you need to take in order for paddling to be safe throughout your entire pregnancy. And of course, let me just preface all of this by saying one of the most frustrating things to hear when you're pregnant, because you hear it constantly, is that every woman is different, every body is different, every pregnancy experience is going to be different, and there is no like exact yes or no for like any of these things. And I kind of say that when I'm talking about paddling too. Like, there's no exact right or wrong. There's fundamentals that we're all going to apply, and that's going to look differently for each of us. So, did it help, or does it help with my pregnancy? And of course, for me, like I said, it helped me to regain my confidence. And I think that it helps in as much as like, it's a sport, it's an activity, it's an exercise that you can continue to do pretty far along in your pregnancy, depending on your body and your comfort level. Whereas running was something that I stopped doing at 6 months because it was no longer comfortable at all. Even though I'm not a very big pregnant woman, I still, I stopped running. I stopped prone surfing around 6 months, and I'm still going to the gym, but it's like, paddling, you can also, I guess it's similar for running. You could just start walking. I do a lot of walking, but you can just slow down your pace of paddling and still get out in the water and still be out in the fresh air and still get exercise. And of course, that's just so important at any time in your life, but especially when you're pregnant and you don't feel like going out for getting exercise. Having an activity that you love doing that gets you outside, fresh air, sunshine, that is important to have. So paddling can absolutely be a really big help through pregnancy if it does that for you. So I got questions about nausea when paddling, and I definitely had nausea in the first trimester and a bit in the last couple months, not as much as the first trimester, but that was not related to, like, it didn't feel like it got worse when I went paddling. That being said, if I was really nauseous, I wasn't like, let's go. I was like, let's not go. So I never like was nauseous and then went paddling to see if it made it better. I might have gone out on my board and just floated outside on the surf zone a couple of times when I wasn't feeling nauseous. There was a couple of times when I got out, and yes, I was out on the ocean and it was just a little bit rolly, and I was like, once I turned around to come back. But at that point I was like, well, I'm out of here, I gotta paddle back. So a couple times I did feel a little nauseous, but for the most part, like, being on your board, it didn't increase nausea or anything like that. But again, that's going to be different from person to person. I think being up and being paddling and being moving is probably better than just lying there, depending on how that makes you feel. So I never felt nauseous paddling on flat water. So another big question, of course, what most of you are probably wondering is, like, how does that affect your training? And like I said, I haven't been training, because to me training is like 6 days a week. I'm following a program, and it's just not what I've been doing. So there's a big difference for me between exercise and training. So, but how does it affect your training if you are training? Because you can, and I know women, and I've talked to women that were in a very different place than me when they became pregnant, didn't even know they were pregnant, just kept training, just kept racing. That is absolutely possible, right? Actually. And that is still safe if that feels safe for you, if you do the following tips that I'm going to talk about. But how it is going to affect your training. So first and foremost, you're just going to be more tired than you think you're going to be, and that's going to increase throughout your pregnancy. So that's just something that I felt every time I went out. I just, you feel more tired than you think you're going to feel. So just take that into consideration when you make a plan for maybe where and when and how far you want to paddle. And if you like doing intervals, what intervals you're going to do. So one of the main reasons is your blood volume is increasing by 50%. So that means your heart has to work harder because you have more blood. So it kind of feels similar to being anemic, where you don't have enough oxygen circulating through your body, and it can be difficult to take nice deep breaths and to be efficiently producing energy through your aerobic system, through your oxygen in inhalations and absorption. So your aerobic system is definitely affected by the blood volume increase. So your resting heart rate's going to be elevated. Your elevated heart rates, your training heart rates are going to be elevated. So, whether you track that or not, just know that your heart rate is going to be higher than what you're used to it being. So I would just say pregnancy, one of my biggest tips is that pregnancy is a time to stay in your comfort zone. This isn't the time where we are pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. I love pushing myself outside my comfort zone normally, but not not during pregnancy. Like, stay in your comfort zone. So you can push yourself, just not probably to the levels that you're used to, because it's going to feel more difficult than you're used to. So one thing I tried initially, because I do interval training and I do track my heart rate, is I just lowered my heart rate zones by several beats per minute. And that felt really comfortable in the first few months, meaning that felt like, yeah, I'm at this level. RPE is rate of perceived exertion. So my perceived exertion felt about right with lowering my target heart rate zones by about 10 beats per minute. However, as my pregnancy has progressed, I've noticed that I stopped using the heart rate monitor. I'm just going off rate of perceived exertion, which I do recommend. as a more valuable way to train. Like, how hard do I feel I'm going right now? And what I've noticed though, because I still like check my heart rate every now and then because I'm curious, is my heart rate is actually 10 beats higher than I think it's going to be based on my rate of perceived exertion where I think I am, right? So, um, so your performance and your output is not going to be what you're used to, and that is going to steadily decrease throughout your pregnancy. So, you are going to sweat more because you're going to have a higher body temperature. And you're going to need more hydration because you're sweating more and you're working harder, whether you feel like you're working harder or not. So, more fluids, more hydration, and just slowly but surely doing less and less and going slower and slower and being like happy with that, and just feeling good moving your body. Question about did I race? Like what races and how was racing pregnant? And I didn't really race pregnant. I did some events just for fun. I did Key West Classic as a relay. I did a couple local 5Ks. I wasn't in a mindset to be racing. That being said, I talked to some mamas and mamas to be who have raced, who did race, and there definitely seems to be a big difference between women who didn't know they were pregnant yet and they were like still racing in the very early weeks versus myself, who I was consciously trying to conceive. I knew the moment I was pregnant each time, because I was tracking my cycle and so in tune with that. So I had already backed way off on training again long before this pregnancy and even before the initial pregnancy. So I have a couple of incredible stories that I've gathered from women. And one of the first ones that you might know is Lina Agaitis. She's a Canadian national paddler, one of the best women paddlers in the world. She's now a mama of 2. I believe her kids are, like 3 and 5 now. And when she was pregnant with her first, she was actually at the ISA World Championships racing and was like, something's off. She came second place, I think, in the world in the long distance, in that race back in 2017 and maybe 2016, and she found out after that weekend that she was pregnant. So she could tell something was off, right? But she didn't know yet. And there was another woman I spoke to. She was an ultra racer, and she came second overall, men and women, in this ultra event. Also found out after that weekend that she was 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. So it's totally possible to continue doing what you were doing in very early pregnancy. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel something's off, but you could still have a healthy pregnancy, even pushing yourself to your limit, which to me, again, entering into my pregnancies with the lack of confidence and trust that I did not feel like pushing myself to my limit at all. That wouldn't have felt safe for me, right? So it's a mindset, and something that I think I've learned now with a successful pregnancy, that it's not about really what you do or don't do as a woman. It's like, was that the right time and was it meant to be? And I believe there's always other greater things at play. So I know a woman who a little bit later in her first trimester, and some of you might know her, who raced at the Key West Classic. So it's their 12 miles. at 10 weeks came in third place woman, and then in the Chattajack, which is 32 miles at 13 weeks, and got second place woman. So she didn't push herself. She's just that good of a paddler that she was able to get those results just paddling at what felt really comfortable of a pace for her. And she's still paddling, and more so, she said her work schedule keeps her off the water than being pregnant keeps her off the water. So there's a lot of women that do still train all the way through, and so yeah, it's totally. I don't even know what the question was. Like, about racing and training, and so, is it safe to surf? Is it safe to surf? If you feel comfortable, right? If that's within your comfort zone, it can be. It could also not be, right? So I'm going to talk about how it could be and how it could not be, right? For me, I felt perfectly comfortable prone surfing on my belly until 6 months. I feel comfortable still SUP surfing in small, like 2 to 3 foot waves. But 3 foot would be about my limit on feeling comfortable, feeling safe, because this is going to vary from person to person and based on your body size, based on your experience. I'm a professional. This is what I do, very regularly, right? So here's the list of tips that I have, and nobody's sent any comments or questions, so please do if you have them. Or maybe they're just not coming through. I don't see them. So here's my list of tips. Number 1, which I've already kind of mentioned all of these already, but listen to your body. I actually do like an internal check-in, like before I go out, what's my gut instinct? Does this feel good? Are these conditions, is this going to feel enjoyable for my body right now? And sometimes that's a full body yes, and sometimes that's a no, actually you need to rest, you're tired right now, right? And having to honor that and having to respect that. We should always honor and respect that, but even more so when we're pregnant, because there's a lot going on inside of us that we don't that we don't even realize is happening. So staying inside your comfort zone would be the number 2 one. And by that I mean the conditions, right? So whether that's flat water, whether it's windy or choppy, or whether it's ocean paddling, or, even downwinding, if that's something that you do regularly, is it inside your comfort zone? And then is the board inside your comfort zone? So one thing that I would do fairly often is take a board that was a little bit wider. I started using my husband's SUP surfboard because it has more buoyancy, so I wasn't falling in. And it was easier for me. And or I would take a slightly wider race board. That being said, I have been out on my super skinny race board just last week, and it felt totally fine in some windy, choppy conditions, but not on the ocean, right? So it's just is it in your comfort zone? And the conditions and the board that you're using, right? And then knowing how to fall, right? Because falling does happen, even in flat water, and especially out on the ocean. Ideally, we don't fall, but it does happen. So knowing how to fall, because the number 1 risk, I would say, for paddling in pregnancy would be falling on your belly or getting hit by the board in your belly, right? So knowing how to fall and not falling on your board, just falling off your board. I would say falling feet first, or even diving head first rather than a belly flop or a back flop. I've done those though and been totally fine. But safe falling would be something that you'd want to not be like, oh, I don't want to fall, and then you try and grab your board and you land on your belly, right? So then the other thing, and the next thing that I would say for that is, and Samantha, I see your question. I'm going to answer that in just a minute. So the next tip that I have in terms of belly is making sure that you can climb back onto your board without putting too much weight on your belly, especially as you get bigger and you're not wanting to put extra weight on the belly. So I can still comfortably pull myself up and onto my knees. I don't have this huge, like I don't have as big a belly as I see a lot of women have at my at my stage of pregnancy. I also came into pregnancy with a lot of upper body strength. Like I can do pull-ups, right? I could probably still do pull-ups. So that's something that I've heard from other women who were paddling was they felt no longer safe paddling when they realized they couldn't get back on their board without being on their belly. So for that reason, you might want to be paddling with a partner and or staying really close to shore. Those are two other tips that other women had suggested. So I would say you want to take extra water, stay hydrated, maybe even snacks, but honestly I wouldn't go out for a paddle long enough where you're going to need snacks, right? But definitely take water. And then again, you're going to be more tired than you think you're going to be. So take breaks as you need them. And this isn't the time to be doing long periods of high intensity training, right? Like what is high intensity training is going to vary from person to person. What is pushing your comfort zone is going to vary from person to person. And you're going to have to listen to your body and do what feels right for you. A lot of women get pain in their lower back, or actually I get it in my middle back during pregnancy. And so you really want to make sure that you are adhering to good form, core stability, and using your legs when you paddle and not your back. And that's going to get harder and harder to do as you grow, right? So paying attention to form, and maybe even it might feel good to have, if you have this option, most people probably don't, but take a paddle that's maybe like 1 inch longer so you can stay a little bit more upright. You're less likely to get into your back as you're paddling. And if you're in terms of core stability and pelvic floor, I did a whole talk on this page, Women in Water Sports page, just a couple weeks ago. You can scroll down or you can search for it in the search tab, on what I mean by engaging your core when you're paddling to protect your spine. That's going to be really helpful, and that's going to help enhance your pregnancy through paddling as well. So I think, let me scroll down. Yeah, those are all the tips that I have and come up with. And if you have other ones, if you are a mama who's paddled through her pregnancy, let me know what yours are. Samantha's asking, she wants to start racing. And what can I start doing now to help prepare me for postpartum racing? So due in July, and already having a toddler. And so, again, I'm not postpartum yet to give like actual personal anecdotal advice on that. However, from the research that I've been doing, again, the worst friggin' answer ever, but that's going to depend on your body, your birth, and the type of recovery that you're going to need from your birth. And there's going to be, there's this like badge of honor of like, how fast can I bounce back? And while that can feel well and great in that moment of I'm going to get right back to it and it's not going to, from the research that I've done and what I tend to believe is that the longer you can actually take, the more you can actually rest in those 6 to 8 weeks immediately postpartum, the better off you're going to be in the long term. It's kind of like when you have an injury, which birth isn't an injury, but it kind of is an injury, and women do get injuries from it, really bad ones. And so it's kind of like an injury, and it can be an injury. When we try to rush back into getting back, we end up prolonging the amount of time that we're in pain, the amount of time that we're dealing with something, having something become a chronic issue. Because we end up doing too much and then having to rest again, and doing too much and having. So it's better to just go super, super slow to rebuild. Like way slower than you think you're gonna want to go to rebuild, because it's actually going to, in the long run, progress you faster, get you back faster. July, August, September, October. I don't know you, Samantha, but I would say that, I'm due in March, and depending on how the birth goes, like Chatterjack could be possible, yeah. But only having 3 months to prepare postpartum. It also depends on what you're doing. What can I start doing now to prepare? So we are in February. February, March, April, May, June, July. Training regularly now is going to help you. Giving yourself grace, being patient, and following everything that I've kind of said in terms of, like, you can still be doing your regular training now if that feels good for you. It's just going to be at a lower level of output than you're used to. So I would say, as long as it feels good up until your final weeks, keep doing what you're doing. That's going to help. And then I would say just not rushing back into thinking, I gotta be out there putting in these miles, because Chatterjack may be possible for you this year, and maybe it's not, it's like one of those things I can't say, but I would say what you can be doing now is listening to your body and doing what feels good as far as maintaining the training that you're doing. So, yeah. Any other questions before I pop off? Cool. Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I'll let you all know on this group how everything's going. This will be my last live here on the group before baby arrives, and then we'll be back in the summer with some more. So don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you're having a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye.